And that's really around the world. It's been a lot of studies, and it's been consistent like that even pre-COVID. Post-COVID, 55% of the employees are looking for a new job. Expect to get a new job within the next couple of months. They are
I'm
no
writing this
longer
down for the
willing
podcast.
to be where they are.
55%.
55% are
post-COVID workforce
actively looking for new jobs. So what are you going to do to make sure your employees are engaged? What are you going to do to make sure they fit in? What are you going to do to make sure that they are part of the solution, part of the company, not just another cog in the wheel of production of whatever your company is doing? You know, we're focused on law practices, but this is really across all fields, especially in law practice, which is why we started these conversations, because we know there are so many attorneys that are just burnout, frustrated, bored, can't stand what they do, hate what they do. I posted something on one of the attorney websites that I'm a member of, and I said, what's the worst part about your job? Everything. I'm like, can't be everything. No, everything. I hate the clients. I hate my opposing counsel. I hate the judges. Like, wow, holy smokes.
Wow, that's a lot of hate.
Yeah. Yeah, and it wasn't just one. It was, I probably had 10, close to 10 people commented on that one.
It's deafening, isn't it? It's deafening. Yeah. The amount of practitioners who hate what they do. And my apologies. I thought we started the broadcast on time. We did, but we didn't go live. So I'm going to refresh real quick. We are talking about engagement, team building, employee training in the context of how we engage with our employees. Hang on one second. Hang on. Just got all the problems today. So employee engagement and
team engagement. You mentioned
team engagement, and for those who don't have, for those who do not have teams, you know, that we're talking about just having the buy-in from your family members, from the people that support you in your life. If it's an independent contractor you're working with, you know, subcontractors you're working with, and you're the leader of that. You know, it doesn't matter if you're a roofer, an attorney, a landman. It doesn't really matter what you're doing. You got to have buy-in from your team. How do you do that? How do you keep them engaged? How do you keep them from having that foot out the door? That's, I think, a lot of what we're talking about. It's certainly in my office, certainly with the Patriot Business Alliance, is training and leading by example. But a lot of it is training, right? Making sure that you're working with your team on a regular basis, reinforcing the patterns and practices and procedures and protocols that you want to exemplify, and that you're handling the problems and issues and things that you need to take, you know, you need to, it's diminish, correct, right? That's a tough one, right? Discipline at a workforce is not like in the military. It's not my way or the highway, right? There's not the uniform, the uniform code of military justice keeping everybody in line. There are more difficult things to deal with when, you know, I imagine that a lot of this was very similar when the military went to an all-volunteer force. How do you keep soldiers who are not drafted in line?
Yeah.
They all want to be there. They all have the passion to be there. And you got to think about your team in those terms, right? They applied for the job, right? Your spouse.
They want something. They want something from working with you. They either want a paycheck, they want a place to have friends, camaraderie.
Yeah, yeah.
They want a challenge, or they just want to get out of the house. There are some people that just want to get out of the house. That's why they want a job. That's why a lot of people want to go back to the office is because they want to have a place to go to. They want to get out of the house. Maybe they're isolated at home. Maybe maybe they got kids running around, and they're like, I gotta get out of here.
Yeah.
So
especially
being
being
work for a lot of different reasons. And as an employer, it's your job to figure out why. Why do they want to work there? And take it a step further. What are their personal goals? What are their professional goals? What are their financial goals? What are their goals in the community? It's the employer's job to keep them engaged. And by finding all those things out, that's what creates engagement.
Yes.
You know, if they know you care about them, they're going to care more about you. Richard Branson is, you know, one of my business heroes. He's always been out there because he says you treat your employees with the most respect you can possibly give them, and they will treat your guests, your customers, with that same kind of respect and loyalty, and it all builds on top of each other, which is why he's been so successful. He doesn't say customer first. He says, no, my employees are first, and then my employees will take care of my customers.
Herb Keller, Southwest Airlines, same thing.
Right, exactly.
Fantastic trial lawyer, fantastic business owner, always put the Southwest Airlines employees first, and turned this little company that was back then taking on, believe it or not, Pan Am, American Airlines, Braniff, Eastern, Delta. Who's left? Who's the only airline turning a profit in the last 3 decades? Southwest Airlines.
Southwest. They got a little issue right now, I heard, but
yeah, they got some problems.
They'll get that figured out. They'll get it figured out.
Yeah, they will sort that out, and they're you know, like every business, they are struggling with the new normal of what are we doing in this post, you know, zombie apocalypse, you know, world where you've got a disease that may or may not be controllable through or minimized through a vaccine, and then you're welcoming people into your place of work. You got to do what you got to do to render that workplace as safe as possible when you're welcoming people to get on your planes and airports. And so we're not getting into all that brain damage.
But actually, I was just thinking the same time. I was like, well, that's kind of going off topic, but it's not. It's really relating to your employees and what their thoughts are on the subject, and including them in those.
Yeah, getting that buy-in.
Should we make it mandatory that people get vaccinated? Should we make it that people that aren't vaccinated stay at home? There's so many issues that employees are concerned about, and if you just raise those issues and get their input, get their feedback, they're going to feel more valuable than if you just made that decision on your own.
You're absolutely right.
Include them in some of those decisions, because a lot of the employers are thinking, well, I'm going to do this because it's going to protect my employees. I'm going to do this because it's going to protect my company. I'm going to do this because it looks good. What are the reasons? And get some feedback from your employees. Doesn't mean you have to take 100% of what they say, but feedback, surveys of your employees on a regular basis, not just and this goes for the full thing, not just this one issue, but not just on an annual review. That's not enough. That's not enough feedback from your employees for whatever the situation is.
You know what? I was just talking about that with a colleague today, is that when we're talking about employee buy-in, regular frequent contact, some employees are going to give you pushback. They're like, what does it matter what my goals are, what my personal, professional, and financial goals are? And I remind them as nicely as I can that I want to ensure that you, the employee, understand that I want to make sure I'm doing everything I can to be accountable to you, so that you're getting something from working here. And it's not just me getting something for you working here.
Right.
Labor for wages is not what my mission is, right? It's more than that. It's all about self-improvement, be better than you were yesterday. Our only competition is the business we were yesterday. My only competition is the business owner, the lawyer, the father, the husband that I was yesterday. That's who I'm looking beside me on the racetrack, right? That's the only one in my wing mirror. I don't see anyone else. And if you're looking at other people on the track, you're distracted. You need to be focused on the man in the mirror, the woman in the mirror, the business owner in the mirror. But it's so critical to have that frequent, what are your core values, Mr. or Mrs. Employee? What do you think the company's core values are? How do they align? What are your personal, professional, financial goals? How do we help you achieve that? Do you want to finish college? Do you want to go to law school? Do you want to just be the greatest salesperson you can be so you can go make $1 million in real estate, commercial real estate or whatever, right? Whatever these things are, I feel like anybody who buys in to what they're selling must have employee buy-in, right, to what the employees want to sell, right? They want to sell that they have importance, that they have value, that they are a contributor. And that's really critical when we start studying the way we communicate with different generations. More and more of our workforce is, let's face it, Marty, the Gen X generation, me and you, we're the number one. We're the first set of latchkey kids in the nation, right? We really are. If you study the Army recruiting and Home Depot and Lowe's advertisements for the last 4 decades, you can see how they transform from the very self-centric baby boomers, the hippies, right? And the Army even found a way to tap into that, right? They started running ads of guys with longer hair, about as long as mine, right? Sitting on Harley Davidson choppers with big old mustaches, which was okay in the Nixon, Carter, Ford era of the United States Army. Right. It changed under Reagan, all volunteer force. Coast Guard had to get rid of their beards for the first time in history. No beards in the U.S. Coast Guard, no matter how cold it is.
Yeah.
And same for the Navy, right? It was just a complete change. We're all going to look alike. We're all going to think like. We're all going to get employee buy-in. Right. And so the Gen X generation thinks and learns differently in a very independent way. The Gen Y and Millennial 2, much more team-oriented, much more want to know that they are valued. The Gen X, man, we don't need to know we're valuable. We know we're valuable, man. And if we don't think we're valuable, we're okay with being latchkey kids. We'll go run a solopreneurship, which we're the biggest generation to do such, right?
That makes total sense. I never even thought of that before, but you're absolutely right. We're used to doing things on our own. Teamwork is tough.
Right, because we were walking home from school at 3:00, right, in the burning Texas heat, and key under the mat, let ourselves in, make a snack, go to baseball practice by ourselves. See, our parents would pick us up at baseball practice, right?
Yeah. Well, I lived out in the country, so I got to drive when I was 13. So
a little bit different, a little bit different. I lived in the big city, so I got to ride a bike all over Houston, Texas. I think about where I used to commute. Right. Some summers I would ride my bicycle from home to Rice University down the busiest streets in Houston, Texas, which is about an 8.5-mile cycle one way. 13 years old, right? Would you let a 13-year-old ride a bike?
No, not now. Not now. No.
So, the thing is that the millennial generation, which is the bulk of our independent contractor employee workforce, they think much differently. They're advertised much different. It's much more cohesive. You look at the Home Depot ads, you can build it. We'll do it together. Yeah. Right. It's very, very collaborative. And that's how millennials think and talk and operate. And to get that buy-in, that goes right back to what you said, Marty, right back what we're talking about with Southwest Airlines. You need that employee buy-in. They got to be part of that decision-making paradigm. And
I remember you were the togetherness, and I remember the Army of One, and that was when we were growing up. Yeah, Army of One.
An Army of One.
I can be there. I can do my own thing. Yeah, no, but we're just going to call it the Army of One.
That's exactly
really what it was.
They were trying to recruit you and me, right? Yep. Army of One. Yep. The single star, and then they went to the Black Beret for the entire United States Army. And then that advertising changed for the next generation. And I'll tell you, the Army is a real good touchstone for how you communicate with different generations.
Yep.
It really, they have.
And they've got their mission, their vision, they've got their core values in sync. No matter what anybody thinks about the military, their mission is in sync. Their vision is in sync. Their core values are there. And I wanted to bring that up because you mentioned that your employees need to be aligned with the business owner's core values and their mission and their vision. So it's so important for an employer to take that time to create their vision and their mission. And I've done it. I'm pretty sure you've done it. My vision is to inspire, empower, and protect customers in a way that positively impacts their families' lives for generations.
Love that.
My mission.
Can I sign up with you right now? That's brilliant, man. I love that.
Absolutely. My mission to provide people with bucket list planning that gives them peace of mind and allows them to live life with more purpose, meaning, and satisfaction, to be fulfilled.
Just think about the gravity of those. If we all lived for that moment, right? For when you think about the amount of time that I have, vegged out watching Netflix, and a statement like that comes along, you're like, whoa, what am I doing with my time, right? And if we guard jealously our time and use it in the best possible way we have, because I don't know about you, Marty, but I don't think it was until I was in my almost late 40s that I realized how valuable my time was. And I was good with wasting it. Not a lot. No, I mean, you and I are dedicated, hard work, right? We had visions, we had missions, we had
I worked hard, but I didn't realize how valuable my time was. You're right.
But there was a time I was like, you know what? Yeah, that's fine. No problem. We'll just watch college football all day Saturday. There was a moment in my life that I was good with that. Right. Not only was college football, college football would start with a tailgate at the University of Houston and then come back home after the tailgate. And back then, I'm not talking about getting blasted at U of H because it was a long way from home. I'm talking about going, barbecuing, having fun, hanging out with your friends, watching a good game because for the first time in decades we were good, and then coming home after all that fun and just vegging out on television until about 11 o'clock at night when all the Pacific Coast games are over. Like, what do I care about the Pac-10? It's just entertainment, but that's not an efficient way to spend 18 hours on a Saturday. It was fun. And there was a season in life for that. But, now I realize the value of all that time. And that's another thing, right? You got more time than you think you do, but you don't have all the time in the world.
Right. And you should still enjoy those experiences, but it doesn't have to be 18 hours at a time. You should take time to spend time with your family, with your spouse, with your friends, with your kids especially. You're never going to get that time back with your kids. And I see too many people on the opposite end of that spectrum that work 24/7 and don't have time for their kids, don't leave time for their kids.
No,
I was lucky enough to be able to pick my kids up from school, to go to practice, watch their whatever they were in, wrestling, football, track. I was again lucky enough to do that.
Yeah,
I worked my ass off to create my own business, so I created my own schedule, so I didn't have to ask my boss to let me off.
Exactly.
And I understood those things, and I incorporated those values in my employees when I had them. And they needed to, they wanted time off to go see their kids play. They wanted time off to go see pick their kids up from school. Absolutely. The family first is what I always believed in. And I lived it, and I allowed my employees to live it. I encouraged them to make sure their family was taken care of.
Yeah.
And for that, they appreciated me.
You know what? That's so critical. And you got to find a way to make time. You have more time than you think you do. And where you find your time is by figuring out where you're losing it on the Netflix, where you're losing it on the unimportant things that you do maybe during the workday. And then back to what the whole point of this is, getting the employee buy-in, how do you do that? Training, just regular, frequent contact, whether that's daily for 10 to 20 minutes. Let's take a lesson from YouTube and Google, right? And back to the whole, what are millennials like? What's their touchstone? 4.5 minutes, man. YouTube videos are 4.5 minutes. Training, right? That's why this call is 20 minutes, which means we're 4.5 minutes over, right? Yep. So we need to give ourselves the hook. But the point being, you don't have to make that big an investment of time to get that employee buy-in and do all that training. Make that training more frequent, not exactly what you said, Marty, not once a year, not even once a quarter. It maybe not daily, but maybe it needs to be 3 to 4 days a week.
Yep. Meaningful spurts of training and getting feedback is the most important and probably the easiest way to get employee buy-in.
Yeah. Got to have that. You got to be hearing what they're saying and not dismissively. Right. And I'm always right.
And acknowledgement. Sorry, that's number one. You know, a lot of people think, oh, I'm here for my pay. Well, a lot of people like acknowledgement. Hey, great job today. I heard how you handled that phone call today. Thank you so much. That was awesome.
Yeah, you got to give that employee acknowledgement.
Little things like that.
It's critical to do that. I completely agree. And, you know, so, okay, saved rounds because we're at 21 minutes.
Right. Let's wrap up. All right. That's it.
I'm going to say this right now. The best thing I did for my company was start investing in them. I think that's chiefly the best thing I ever did was I started investing in my company the way I invested in myself. I started spending money on training my employees the way I spend money training myself, getting extra education, taking 45 hours of continuing education in 1 year to become a member of the bar college. Well, I took that idea and I shifted it into how do I invest in my employees? And then how do you make that investment pay off? How do you reinforce that investment? Training, working with them daily, right? And I was doing the investing part and kind of doing the training, but now that I feel that I'm doing all of it together, the returns on investment, whether that just be elevated employee performance, elevated employee appreciation, elevated employee acknowledgement, all those things. So money where your mouth is. Don't just invest in yourself, invest in your people, get their buy-in by working with them. So it's a financial commitment to invest in their self-improvement. And then it's also a time. You have to be willing to give your time. Right. Don't just hand them a book and go read this and give me a book report. Invest your time into making sure that you reinforce the lessons from the book you want them to report on.
Right. And the final word on that, making an investment is key because an engaged employee is going to produce 2.5 times, 3 times more than a disengaged employee.
Wow. I'm writing this down. That is so true. I mean, I see that all the time. You know, just in other businesses, in business problems, when you have a disengaged employee and an engaged employee, I mean, the difference in performance it's 10x.
Yep.
All right. That's all we got. We'll see you next week. We'll be on time next week. No promises. Now, hopefully all our tech issues will be sorted. Thank you so much for joining, Marty. And we'll see you guys on our next broadcast Wednesday at 08:30 Central.
All right. See you.